I've always believed in loyalty. That's what makes a marriage work, right? You find that one person, your soulmate, someone you can trust with everything. For me, that was Lisa. I thought I hit the jackpot. She was everything I wanted. Kind, caring, supportive. I'd always tell myself, bad women? Yeah, they deserve what's coming to them. But Lisa, she's not like that. We've had our ups and downs, like any couple, but no matter what, I held on to this belief that Lisa was loyal and that together we'd make it through anything. I'd always imagined us growing old together, sitting on the porch, watching the world go by. That was the dream. Happiness, stability, the kind of love you only see in the movies. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fears. Deep down, I think every man has them. You know, those little moments when she's distracted or spends a little too much time on her phone. You brush it off because you trust her. I mean, Lisa would never cheat on me. I'd tell myself that over and over again, trying to drown out those doubts. And let's be real, I've never been the most successful guy, never had the kind of money or status that could turn heads. Sometimes I'd wonder if that was enough for her. But I pushed those thoughts aside because, well, Lisa was loyal. She had to be. But it's funny how life works, isn't it? Just when you think you've got it all figured out, everything starts to crack. And I wasn't ready for what was about to happen next. It was a regular day, nothing out of the ordinary. I was outside just minding my own business when my neighbor Bill came over. Bill's a good guy, quiet, keeps to himself, but there was something different about him that day. He looked uncomfortable, like he had something weighing heavy on his mind. He hesitated for a moment, and I remember thinking, what's this about? I wasn't prepared for what came next. John, I've been debating whether to tell you this or not, he started. But I think you need to know. I've seen Lisa with someone else. For a second, it didn't even register. Someone else? What was he talking about? My Lisa? The woman I've spent all these years trusting? I just stared at him, waiting for him to laugh, to tell me it was some kind of joke. But there was no joke, no punchline. I've seen her meeting up with a guy, Bill continued, his voice lowering like he didn't want anyone else to hear. At first, I thought maybe it was just a friend, but it doesn't look that way, John. I'm sorry, man. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My mind was racing, trying to process what he was telling me. Bill? He had to be mistaken. Lisa wouldn't do that. She couldn't. We had built a life together, and there was no way she would throw that away for some other guy. I felt the anger rising in my chest, but at the same time, I felt confused, lost. Bill apologized again and walked off, leaving me there, standing like a fool. My world, the one I thought was rock solid, suddenly felt like it was built on sand. How could this be true? I trusted Lisa. I loved her. And now I was being told, by my neighbor of all people, that she was with someone else. I kept thinking, maybe he's wrong. Maybe he saw something out of context. There's no way Lisa could betray me like that. But deep down, something didn't feel right. That seed of doubt was planted, and it wasn't going away. After Bill left, I just stood there for what felt like forever, replaying his words in my head. Lisa, with someone else. I kept telling myself it couldn't be true. No, Bill must have misunderstood what he saw. Maybe he saw Lisa with a colleague, or maybe it was a friend. She'd never do something like that to me. I knew her better than that, didn't I? But that doubt, the one I'd been ignoring for so long, started creeping in. Little moments I had brushed off began resurfacing. Late nights at work, unexplained outings, the way she'd been distant lately. It all started to pile up. My mind was a mess, racing between denial and suspicion. I wanted to confront her right away, but what was I going to say? "Hey, Lisa, Bill saw you with another man. What's going on?" It sounded ridiculous in my head. I didn't even have any proof. And what if Bill was wrong? What if I was wrong? What if I accused her and it turned out to be nothing? But what if it wasn't nothing? I couldn't shake the feeling. My stomach was in knots, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring down into something I couldn't control. Everything I believed in, everything I trusted, was suddenly up for grabs. I hated myself for even thinking it, but I couldn't stop. Every time I tried to tell myself it was a misunderstanding, that doubt came back stronger. I'd look at Lisa and my mind would go into overdrive. Was she hiding something? I tried to act normal, but I couldn't. Every word she said, every movement she made, I was analyzing. Is she lying to me? Is she thinking about someone else right now? It was eating me alive. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus at work. I started to feel paranoid, like the truth was hovering just out of reach, taunting me. I wanted to believe her, to trust her the way I always had. But I was terrified. If Bill was right, everything I knew about my life, my marriage, would be shattered. I started finding excuses to stay up late, hoping to catch her texting or sneaking out, but there was nothing. That only made it worse. No signs, no clues. It was like living in a fog, knowing there was a storm ahead, but not knowing when it would hit. And that's the thing that hurt the most, the not knowing. The idea that the woman I loved, the woman I built my life around, could be keeping something this big from me. It tore me apart. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. I was caught between the man I was, the one who believed in loyalty, who trusted Lisa with his life, and the man I was becoming, suspicious, anxious, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I had no idea how to move forward. The worst part wasn't even the doubt or the suspicion. It was the way it made me feel about myself. Suddenly, I was questioning everything. Not just Lisa, but me. Who I was. Whether I was enough. I started thinking about all the things I didn't have. The success, the money, the status. I'd always worked hard, but life hadn't exactly rewarded me with luxury. We had a decent life, sure, but I knew I wasn't the guy who turned heads or made people stop and pay attention. Was that it? Was I not enough for her anymore? I looked in the mirror, and for the first time in years, I didn't like what I saw. It wasn't just physical, it was deeper than that. I wasn't the man I thought I was. I had always prided myself on being a good husband, a loyal one. I thought if I was kind, supportive, and loved her the way she deserved, that would be enough. But maybe I was wrong. I started wondering if this was my fault. Did I work too much? Did I not spend enough time with her? Was I so wrapped up in my own worries about money and the future that I missed something? Maybe I wasn't giving her the attention she needed. Maybe I wasn't the man she thought she was marrying all those years ago. The thing is, I'd never been particularly successful with women. Before Lisa, it always felt like I was on the outside looking in. I didn't have the charm or confidence that other guys seemed to have. Lisa was different. She saw something in me, or at least I thought she did. But now, I couldn't help but wonder, had she settled? Was I just the safe choice, the easy option, until someone better came along? Those thoughts ate away at me. Every time I looked at Lisa, I couldn't help but think about the guy Bill had mentioned. Who was he? What did he have that I didn't? Was he younger, better looking, more successful. Was that what she wanted? I was angry at her, at Bill for telling me, but mostly at myself. I should have seen the signs earlier, right? But no, I was too wrapped up in my own insecurities, too busy worrying about whether I measured up to some impossible standard. I always thought I was doing my best, but now it felt like my best wasn't good enough. Maybe it never was. Maybe that's why Lisa was looking elsewhere, why she needed more than what I could offer. And once that idea got into my head, it just wouldn't leave. I felt small, insignificant, like everything I had worked for, everything I had built with Lisa, was just a joke. My confidence was shot. I felt like a failure, not just as a husband, but as a man. And the more I thought about it, the worse it got. I wanted to talk to someone, to tell them how I was feeling, but I couldn't. I was too ashamed, too embarrassed. What was I supposed to say? Hey, I think my wife is cheating on me because I'm not good enough. Yeah, right. That wasn't a conversation I was ready to have. Not yet. So I bottled it up, kept it all inside, and tried to push through. But every day, that weight got heavier. Every day I felt a little bit less like myself and a little bit more like the guy who couldn't keep his wife happy. I couldn't take it anymore. The doubt, the constant second-guessing, the gnawing feeling in my gut. It was all too much. I had to know. I had to hear it from her, straight from Lisa. So one night, when we were sitting down after dinner, I finally worked up the nerve. I didn't even know how to start. My heart was pounding in my chest, and my mouth felt dry, but I just blurted it out. Lisa, is there something you need to tell me? She looked at me, confused. What do you mean? She asked, her voice steady, but I saw something in her eyes, a flicker of something. Was it guilt? Panic? I couldn't tell, but I pressed on. Bill told me he's seen you with someone else, meeting up with a guy. What's going on? For a second, everything felt like it stopped. The room, the air between us, it all went quiet. Lisa didn't say anything at first, and that silence was deafening. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for the ground to fall out from under me. And then she spoke. John, it's not what you think, she said, her voice soft but firm. Yes, I've been meeting someone, but it's not like that. My head was spinning. Not like that. What did that even mean? She started explaining, saying the guy was someone she knew from work. They'd been meeting for coffee, she said, just to talk. Apparently, he was going through a rough time, and she was just being there for him as a friend. I swear, John, nothing has happened, she said, looking me straight in the eyes. But I didn't know what to believe anymore. Was she telling the truth? Was I just paranoid? Or was this just her way of covering it up? Every word out of her mouth felt like it was wrapped in doubt, and no matter how much I wanted to believe her, that nagging feeling in the back of my mind wouldn't go away. I asked her, why didn't you tell me? Why keep it a secret if it's just a friend? She sighed, looking frustrated now. Because I knew you'd react like this. I knew you'd get jealous and assume the worst. She stood up, pacing the room. I didn't want to have this conversation because I knew you wouldn't believe me. Her words stung. Was she right? Was I overreacting? Was I the problem here? But still, something felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. I didn't have proof. I didn't have any concrete reason not to believe her, but after everything Bill had said and the way Lisa had been distant lately, it was hard to accept that this was just an innocent misunderstanding. I stood up too, my hands shaking. I don't know what to think, Lisa. I want to believe you, I do. But something doesn't feel right. She looked at me, her eyes softening. John, I love you. I would never do anything to hurt you. You have to trust me. Trust. That was the word that hung in the air between us. I had always trusted Lisa with everything. But now, that trust felt fragile, like it could break at any moment. And I didn't know if I'd ever be able to look at her the same way again. After that night, nothing felt the same. Even though Lisa insisted there was nothing going on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between us. It was like the foundation of our relationship had cracked, and no matter how hard I tried to patch it up, it just kept crumbling beneath my feet. Every day, I felt like I was walking through a fog. I'd sit at work, staring at my computer screen, but I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept replaying that conversation with Lisa over and over again. Her words echoed in my head, but no matter how much I wanted to believe her, that seed of doubt had already taken root, and it was growing. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake in bed next to her, listening to the quiet, feeling the space between us grow wider. She'd roll over in her sleep, and I'd wonder if she was thinking about him, if her mind was somewhere else, with someone else. I'd never felt more alone in my life. I started questioning everything. Had I missed something all along? Were there signs that I had just ignored because I didn't want to see them? Or was this all in my head, some twisted insecurity that I couldn't control? I didn't know what to believe anymore. All I knew was that the woman I loved, the woman I'd built my life with, felt like a stranger. The emotional roller coaster was relentless. One minute, I'd be angry. Angry at her for putting me in this position. Angry at myself for not being able to trust her. The next minute, I'd feel sad, heartbroken, over the thought that our marriage was slipping away, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I wanted to talk to her, to work through it, but every time I tried, it felt like I was hitting a wall. She kept telling me the same thing. John, you have to trust me. But how could I trust her when everything inside me was screaming that something wasn't right? I couldn't even look at her without feeling a mix of emotions. Love, hurt, frustration, fear. It was like my heart and my mind were at war with each other. One part of me wanted to hold on to her, to fight for what we had. The other part of me just wanted to walk away, to escape the pain that was slowly tearing me apart. But it wasn't that simple. How could I just walk away from years of marriage, from everything we'd been through? The memories, the love we shared. It wasn't something I could just turn off. But at the same time, how could I stay in this limbo, constantly questioning everything, never knowing if she was being truthful? Every day I woke up with this ache in my chest, a weight I couldn't shake. I'd smile through it, pretend everything was fine, but inside I was breaking. I was losing her, and I didn't know if I could ever get her back. And the worst part was, I didn't know if I even wanted to anymore. The man I used to be, the one who believed in loyalty, in love, in trust, felt like he was slipping away. I didn't recognize myself anymore. I wasn't the same John who could brush things off and move forward. I was stuck in this cycle of doubt, hurt, and confusion, and I didn't know how to break free from it. It came to a point where I knew I had to make a choice. I couldn't keep living like this, stuck between love and betrayal, between trusting her and doubting everything. Something had to give. Either I'd find a way to move on with Lisa, or I'd have to walk away. But the thought of either option felt impossible. Leaving wasn't something I had ever imagined. I'd built my life around Lisa. We had a home together, memories, shared dreams. How do you just walk away from that? How do you throw it all away because of one moment of doubt? part of me felt like walking away would mean I had failed, not just as a husband, but as a man. It felt like giving up on everything I believed in, but staying meant living in this constant state of suspicion. Every time she went out, every time she picked up her phone, I'd wonder. I'd question her words, her actions, her loyalty. And that's not how I wanted to live. I couldn't go on pretending like everything was okay when I was breaking inside. I weighed the options over and over again. I thought about confronting her again, pushing harder for the truth, but what good would it do? She'd already told me her side, and either I believed her or I didn't. And that was the crux of it. I didn't know if I could ever fully believe her again. I found myself thinking about what life would be like without her. The idea scared me, but it also gave me a strange sense of relief. To be free of the constant worry, the pain, the doubt, it was tempting. But then I'd think about the good times, about everything we'd been through, and that feeling of relief would be replaced with a deep sadness. Was I really ready to let go of all that? Was I ready to say goodbye to the life we'd built? In the end, I knew it wasn't just about staying or leaving. It was about what kind of man I wanted to be. Did I want to be the man who fought for his marriage, even when it felt impossible? Or did I want to be the man who chose to walk away, to find peace on his own terms? I didn't have an answer, not yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. A decision had to be made, even if it tore me apart. I realized I couldn't keep all of this bottled up anymore. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could give me some kind of perspective on everything that was happening. So, I reached out to a few close friends and family. The first person I went to was my best friend, Mike. He'd known me and Lisa for years, had been there through the highs and lows. When I told him what was going on, he just shook his head. "Man, that's rough," he said. "But listen, if you're asking me, you've got to trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. You deserve better than living like this, always wondering." His words hit me hard. Mike wasn't the kind of guy to sugarcoat things. He laid it out straight. And as much as I appreciated his honesty, part of me wasn't ready to hear it. Then I talked to my sister, Claire. She was more sympathetic, more focused on trying to make sense of it all. "John, you've always trusted Lisa. Maybe this is just a rough patch. I know how much you love her. Are you sure you want to throw everything away over something that might not even be real?" Her words stuck with me too, but in a different way. Was I overreacting? Was I really going to destroy my marriage because of one accusation? Claire made me think about the years we had together and whether this was something we could work through. But the more people I talked to, the more confused I became. Some told me to fight for my marriage. Others told me to move on. Everyone had an opinion, but no one had the answer I was looking for. I guess deep down, I knew they couldn't make the decision for me. But I needed to hear it from them, to know I wasn't completely losing my mind. In the end, the conversations helped, but they also left me feeling more torn than ever. One minute, I was ready to fight for Lisa, to give our marriage another chance. The next, I was thinking about what Mike said, about how I deserved better than this constant doubt. All I knew was that I couldn't make this decision alone. But even with the support of my friends and family, the weight of it still rested squarely on my shoulders. After talking to everyone, I realized that no one could make this decision for me. It had to come from me. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became that I couldn't keep living the way I had been. Constantly doubting, constantly questioning. Whether I stayed with Lisa or not, I knew one thing for sure. I needed to find my strength again. I needed to heal, no matter what happened between us. So, I started focusing on myself for the first time in a long while. I'd been so caught up in worrying about our marriage, about what Lisa might or might not be doing, that I had forgotten about me. I started going for long walks, just to clear my head, to breathe. I signed up for the gym again, something I hadn't done in years, and it wasn't about impressing anyone or trying to win Lisa back. It was about feeling better, about rebuilding the parts of myself that had been broken down over time. Slowly, little by little, I started to feel more like myself. The fog that had been clouding my mind began to lift, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could see clearly. I wasn't out of the woods yet, but I was starting to understand that my worth didn't come from Lisa or from whether she was faithful or not. It came from me, and that was something I had lost sight of along the way. I started taking time to do things I loved, things that made me feel alive again. I reconnected with old friends, started reading books that had been collecting dust on the shelf, and even picked up a new hobby, woodworking. I'd never done it before, but there was something calming about working with my hands, about creating something from nothing. It reminded me that I still had control over my life, over my decisions, and as I focused on healing, I found that the emotional weight I had been carrying started to lessen. The heartbreak was still there, but it wasn't as overwhelming as it had been. I could look at Lisa without feeling that immediate sting of betrayal, and I realized that whether I stayed with her or not, I could survive this. I would survive this. It wasn't easy. Healing never is. There were days when I felt like I was back at square one, like nothing I was doing made a difference. But then there were moments, small, quiet moments, where I felt a flicker of peace, of hope, and I held on to those moments as tightly as I could. I didn't have all the answers yet. I didn't know where my marriage was headed. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just surviving. I was starting to live again. And that, in itself, felt like a victory. After months of focusing on myself, of healing, and trying to find my way through the mess of emotions, something unexpected happened. I met someone. Her name was Emily. It wasn't like I was out looking for anything. Honestly, I didn't even think I was ready for a new relationship. But Emily and I met by chance, through a mutual friend at a small get-together. She was kind, easy to talk to, and for the first time in a long time, I felt that spark. It wasn't like the movies or some grand moment where everything clicked into place, but it was real. And it was enough to make me take notice. At first, I was hesitant. I still had my guard up, afraid of being hurt again, afraid of trusting someone only to have it all fall apart. Emily seemed different, but that nagging doubt was still there, reminding me of what had happened with Lisa. Could I really let my walls down again? Could I risk trusting someone after everything I'd been through? But Emily was patient. She didn't push, didn't demand anything from me. We started off slow, just casual conversations, meeting up for coffee, getting to know each other. And over time, I found myself opening up to her, little by little. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I'd pull back, afraid of getting too close. But Emily never wavered. She was steady, and in that steadiness, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. It wasn't about replacing Lisa or erasing the past. That wasn't possible, and I knew that. But with Emily, I started to realize that maybe, just maybe, I could learn to trust again. Maybe there was room in my life for something new, something better. We weren't rushing into anything. Both of us had our own pasts, our own scars, but there was something about her that made me believe it was worth trying. And that, more than anything, was what I needed. A reason to believe that not everything had to end in heartbreak. As time went on, things with Emily grew deeper. What started as casual meetups turned into something more, something real. It wasn't like with Lisa. This was different. With Emily, there was no pretense, no fear of judgment. It felt easy. And after everything I'd been through, I didn't think love could feel easy again. We weren't rushing into anything, but the more time we spent together, the more I realized that this was what I'd been missing. For so long, I had been wrapped up in the pain, in the heartbreak of losing Lisa, that I had forgotten what it felt like to be truly happy with someone, to laugh, to feel at ease, to trust again. The biggest surprise wasn't just finding someone new, it was discovering that I still had the capacity for love. I thought my heart had been hardened, that I couldn't let anyone in again. But with Emily, I felt myself softening, opening up in ways I hadn't expected. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And that was enough. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. I was moving forward. I had found someone who saw me for who I was. Someone who wasn't tied to the past or the mistakes that had been made. And in that, I found peace. I won't lie and say that everything is perfect or that the scars of the past are gone. They're still there, reminders of what I went through. But those scars don't define me anymore. They're just a part of the story, a part of who I am. And as for Emily, she's become a part of that story too. A new chapter, one that's filled with hope, with trust, and yes, with love. The kind of love that doesn't erase the past, but builds something better from it. I never thought I'd be here, standing on the other side of heartbreak, with someone new by my side. But here I am. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like everything is going to be okay.